Due to the violent brawls, Dennis Rodman is both figuratively and literally the most colorful character we have ever seen in the NBA. That's what he used as an excuse to do the most absurd and ridiculous things off the basketball floor. The man known as the Worm never fails to amuse his audience. I mean, he's the only sports figure with the guts to befriend a dictator. And this guy once skipped practice to join Hulk Hogan's tag team. But you've got to give it to the man because he always gets what he wants, with the exception of the time when he got signed by the Mavericks after playing 23 games for Rodman, while representing the Bulls and Lakers in 1991. When he played for the Mavericks, Rodman decided to shake things up by selecting the number 69 as his jersey number. Rodman previously wore the jersey numbers 91 and 73 because they represent his favorite number, which is 10. Since Rodman has a reputation as a bad boy, David Stern, the NBA commissioner, felt that Rodman's request would harm the league's image. As a result, Rodman's request was denied, and every new NBA player has since worn the number 69. Rodman eventually added one to make his jersey number more family-friendly, and even though his preferred number was outlawed, there's actually a picture going around online that shows the news really protecting the controversial Jesse, and Mark Cuban even has it framed and hanging in his office as a piece of rare memorabilia to show that this story is true, and that the jersey number is just one of the many things that the NBA has outlawed. A YouTuber by the name of Dawson Gurley, also known as Big Dawes TV, gained notoriety in 2017 for mimicking Klay Thompson and attending the NBA Finals. Many people actually thought he was the other half of the Splash Brothers because he would roam the city dressed as Klay and play one-on-one street basketball with random individuals. Gurley decided to up his prank for Game 5 of the 2022 NBA Finals by attempting to enter the Chase Center while posing as Klay Thompson and other unaware fans. The majority of the arena employees were duped by Gurley, and what's even more startling is that even the security guards let him in without a second thought. Gurley continued to enter the arena after breaking through all security measures, and he eventually arrived at the court. After a short period of shooting, a security guard realized he wasn't the real Klay and swiftly had him led out of the arena. Later that afternoon, Gurley returned to the Chase Center with legitimate tickets to see the game. But the vice president of security stopped him and handed him a letter imposing a lifelong ban as punishment for what he had done earlier. Anyway, folks, in addition to banning individuals, the NBA has also prohibited players from being near specific basketball equipment and accessories, including this stuff right here. Jerry Stackhouse initiated the practice of wearing compression tights, which quickly spread among elite athletes like Kobe, LeBron, and D. Wade. However, because they didn't like the way it looked and believed it was a fashion trend, league officials intended to keep the prohibition on players wearing leggings. Additionally, the study demonstrates that compression tights improve athletic performance because they boost blood flow, which helps muscles recover from vigorous exercise by absorbing its force. As a result, the league permits players to wear tights as long as they receive a formal authorization from their team doctor, stating that they will only use them for prescribed medical grounds and not merely for fashion. The league eventually decided to have the leggings color coordinated with the team to give them a more uniform look, which will now be frequently seen in today's NBA. This was done because of the medical implications and to make it more aesthetically pleasing. Eventually, the ban that was imposed on that didn't last long. Now that we understand why D. Wade was successful in popularizing compression tights, we can see why he had less success with his attempt to get notoriety for his customizable Band-Aid. Dwyane Wade began wearing a Band-Aid like most people would after suffering a cut beneath his left eye in the 2009 Season 10. The only drawback was that they had various designs and were a little flamboyant. For instance, there was the one with his name, the Flash logo, and even a picture of the American flag on it. Although the league permits players to wear bandages of any kind for medical reasons, adding personalization, branding, or any other sort of identification to the item is strictly forbidden. Wade's new fashion revolution was thus put to an end by the NBA before it even got started. Guys, in addition to bandages, the NBA also issued bans on a few pairs of shoes. One of them is the APL Concept 1 shoe. The load and launch technology, which was first introduced in 2009 by the Athletic Population Labs Concepts One Shoe, was only discovered by the NBA. It can increase a player's vertical leap to as much as 3.5 inches. They promptly outlawed the footwear on the grounds that anyone wearing the sneakers would have an unfair edge over players wearing ordinary footwear. Now first, I didn't think the NBA would have banned these sneakers since I didn't think they were all that revolutionary. But after further investigation, I became convinced that the footwear may significantly alter the NBA game due to what I discovered to be attached inside of it. Players like Nikola Jokic and Luka Doncic, who don't have any ties, would have the jumps of Vince Carter. In any case, wearing headbands in the 1990s wasn't exactly a significant trend. However, it eventually made its way into the league around the middle of the 2000s. The NBA wasn't initially concerned about it, but after noticing that several players began donning them, they decided to cash in again and replace all the club's official aircraft headbands with a new kind bearing the NBA emblem. Some athletes, such as Rasheed Wallace, decided that wearing a headband with a silhouette of Jerry West on it was not their thing. As a result, he turned the headband inside out. However, as was to be expected, the NBA didn't like what Wallace did and called him out on it. Now, a few years later, Rajon Rondo attempted to outwit the NBA by flipping his head upside down rather than inside out, and I guess you already know how that turned out. Anyway, this is the next shoe, which is similar to the APL Concept One Shoe that we previously discussed. The NBA at least believes that this next piece of equipment could lead to an unfair edge. The league has once again objected to a Dwayne item, but this time it is a pair of contentious eyewear. To his credit, Dwayne acknowledged that he was suffering from terrible migraines at the time in order to utilize his preferred goggles, which can effectively shield his eyes from light sensitivity. The Heat refused the request after sending images of the NBA players' eyewear for clearance, claiming that the lenses were too dark and would give opponents an unfair edge because they couldn't see the players' eyes. The Heat proposed a different kind of Google, and the league subsequently authorized it. This one, however, was not as colored as Dwayne had intended and had specs. Dwayne scored 34 points in that contest against the Knicks while sporting second-grade sunglasses. If Dwayne lowers by 50 or 60, I'm quite convinced the league may have just discovered a second-grade class. Anyhow, this next ban is likely the largest the NBA has ever enforced in league history, and many players were undoubtedly unhappy about it. David Stern, the fashion-conscious commissioner, brought down the hammer on October 17, 2005, by taking harsh measures against players who enjoy wearing baggy casual attire. Kind of like that, but apologies Tim Duncan, I was talking to what Allen Iverson used to wear. Whatever the case, a dress rule was established in 2005 that prohibited athletes from wearing any bling or jewelry items inside the arena, including sunglasses and earbuds. Players like Jason Richardson claimed that the restriction somewhat inhibits their ability to express themselves and feels that it was intended as a racial attack against black players because you are not allowed to wear chains outside of your outfit. I'm not sure how that relates to being professional. Even if you wear a suit, you might still be a thief. A person wearing a suit could be a 3-time felon, while a guy with baggy pants, a do-rag, and a PhD could also enter the building. LeBron, meanwhile, seems to be quite unconcerned about it and has no difficulty dressing professionally before games.